Welcome back to another episode of SaaS Buyers Club. I'm your host, Omeed, and I'm a corporate and M&A lawyer that helps founders with their contracts, as well as exiting their business, contract negotiation, drafting, so on and so forth. And the mission of SaaS Buyers Club is to help founders get the best exit possible. And here's what I believe. I believe that anything that helps founders build their companies helps them get the best exit possible. So, with that being said, I'm really pleased to welcome Aryuna to the show today. Thank you so much for joining, Aryuna.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And Aryuna was a co founder of a venture backed startup. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes, fantastic. And and how would you describe what it is that you do now, Aryuna?
I help founders to scale, fundraise, and also get rid of limiting beliefs.
Got it. And how do you do that?
It's a very interesting question because people usually do not believe in mindset work. They pursue revenue and profits, which is great, of course. But I do believe that before you implement all the tools, how you can get to that point, you need to do some reset about how you think about the process and about everything that stops you from getting there. And sometimes we are not even aware of this limiting beliefs. And this is what holds us back. Like I can provide you with an example where the founder wanted to raise um, $10 million. And then he comes to me and says that whatever I do somehow doesn't work, even though we have all the best numbers. And my question to him was, what is the benefit of you not having $10 million? And he started telling me that I'm insane, that it is not possible, that he does not want to have this $10 million because he needs to pay his team and everyone else, contractors, himself. And eventually, after certain questions, and like I have my own framework of like how I ask these questions and like what helps me to get to the point where they actually share the thoughts that they have not thought about. And after an hour, he told me, well, probably I do not want to give up control to investors. And here we are. So from there, we need to go to the situation where this person actually gave up control in the first place, to replay that movie and to convince the brain that it is actually safe to give up some control when you actually can get more out of it. And then we worked through that. And to him, it was mind blowing that mindset work actually impacts your revenue.
Hmm.
So this is what I do.
Got it. Okay, so you help founders reprogram their mindsets.
Exactly.
Cool.
And then there is a difference between like therapists and coaches. And I've been through this myself because whenever I went to a therapist who did not build a company, who was not on the venture side as I was, and the therapist would ask me, how do you feel about certain things? It's great to be aware of what you're thinking about and totally helpful. But then my question was, if I cannot relate to that person and then this person did not do the things that I did or I want to do, it's not super helpful as someone else who actually has similar experience. But the problem with that the people with similar experience, they are not coaches. They are mostly like focused on building their own business, and then they can give you advice on how they build their companies, but they don't dig into your personality to identify strengths and weaknesses that you have. What worked for them might not work for you just because you're totally different people. So that's the answer.
Mm. And that's how your work differs from a coach or a therapist.
Exactly.
Got
It's
it.
like combining the two and understanding who is in front of you and what weaknesses and strength could actually play well to achieve certain outcome. And for some people, outbound doesn't work. For some people, it does. For some people, personal communication, like connection, works better when you meet people in person than just writing emails. And then what is best for you? For example, right? Like when you
Mm,
fundraising or warm intros are better than like cold outreach, and then vice versa. Who are you hiring? Like who are the best people for you? Who are complementing your skills?
mhm.
Understanding all of that is like really important.
And that's something that you do and help founders with as opposed to just a therapist, for example, who would just help them understand what it is that they're thinking or feeling.
Exactly. Then the next step is usually okay, we figure out your limiting beliefs, you are aware of them. Then with this, you can start implementing tools to get to the point where you want to be. For example, it might be fundraising or sales. A lot of founders actually do not want to be in a position where they are asking for something or begging, as they say. Like, for example, it's sales, and then they want to close a deal, and then they do not want to be humiliated. And it's a lot about how you think about it. So I train them to actually get over this with certain exercises and also frameworks, and it's getting better.
Mm,
So they view the world differently then. But it's all about like where it started and then replaying it again and understanding that where it started, it was like maybe 20 years ago. And then now the interpretation of this event is completely different from the reality. So they drag it to the present and they implement the same things that they implemented back then, and it might not work there. So the difference with like therapy work is that you have to take action. And then sometimes people who are not in business, they don't know what action is better to take. And I was on the venture side, I was on the co-founder side, and I worked in enterprise sales and corporate finance, built career in corporate world, and then in startup world as well. So understanding all the nuances, reaching out to enterprise world and building the team and managing the team and negotiating with all the stakeholders and at the same time negotiating with your prospects and bringing the best value that you can for all of them. This is the key point. It's just understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at.
mm, mhm, mhm. And so what you do is you help founders scale and you help them fundraise and you help them overcome mindset blocks that are preventing them from scaling or raising funds. So talk to me a little more about that in terms of like what happens um are these founders already successful to some degree? And if they're already successful to some degree, like what happens in that journey that they some sort of roadblock and they're not able to overcome that roadblock so that they need your support?
Of course. So, for example, a lot of my clients actually have the same problem. And the problem is delaying certain processes, and then they do not want to make tough decisions. For example, to fire someone who is not executing anymore. Like, for example, there is a VP, and this VP has been with the company for 3 years. And the founder says that this VP was amazing and he brought a lot of value, but now we are at the next stage and I don't know what to do. It's really difficult for me. And then he's not like producing the results that we need at this stage. And he's like a brother to me. And I told him, well, there is family and there is work, right? You cannot confuse work and family situation. When some of your family members is not capable of performing, you still take care of your family member. When it's work and the employee is not performing, you still can be friends, but you both know that the employee is not performing. So it's completely different from family structure. And we cannot confuse the two.
Mm,
So basically, clear communication is usually the best thing that can happen to all the founders. But for the most part, they just avoid this difficult confrontational conversations. And this is what actually could bring success faster when they can be really honest and transparent in their communication with other people. And yes, of course, these other people might not like this information, but it's again about the KPIs, the expectations, and how do you see this person fitting the role. And then he started like talking to his VP, and I mean the founder who had this problem. And then they had really good conversation. And then he came back to me and said, Aryuna, I actually didn't expect that it's going to be easier than I thought about it, because he also felt that something was off for him already. And then he didn't feel that he could bring a lot of value. So it basically was like mutual agreement that this person has to resign as a VP. So, and then they need to hire someone who already has scaled like the products, like, and then it's not zero from one stage, it's like more 1 to 2 stage. At every stage, you need different people, and this is like totally true. And I was in the situations on both sides, and I think this is how adults think versus the people who are owning victim mindset. So that's why my major advice is always hire people who are having this entrepreneurial spirit and they are responsible for themselves. And if something happens, they would not blame you. They would just, I'm leaving, or let's work on it and let's grow together. So there would be no complaints, there would be no conflicts. It's just like clear communication, figuring out what's happening with the company at this time and what's best for the company.
Talk to me about why founders should care about mindset.
I think that we all grow up with certain beliefs that our parents, the society, and our circles actually helped us embrace. However, it's not necessarily true what we were told. And sometimes we don't even know how it impacts us. And we just grow up with that. And, like, for example, some founders, like specifically one of my clients told me, actually, having money is not that safe. When you have money, it's kind of dangerous. Well, yes, he experienced certain situations when he was a child, when his father earned a lot of money and then his family just suffered because of that. And he doesn't even know how it impacts him now when he is raising money. So when we started talking about it, he discovered that it actually was his main blockage. So every time you want to grow, you want to uncover everything that is hidden, and then you are not like fully aware of it. But with the right coach, who you are truly resonating with, you can do a lot of things and you can grow much faster. And I also hear very often that a lot of founders say, I don't need a coach. I know everything how to do myself. Yes, that's true. You do know it. But even the best surgeon cannot do the surgery on his own. And I usually think that like the people who are speaking on behalf of their ego versus their higher self and their like best version. So the ego usually responds in a way, I can do it on my own. I know how to do it. And then I don't need anyone's advice. But the thing is that the coaches never give you advice. They just try to uncover what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then how to amplify everything that you're good at so you can get to the finish line faster than you're doing it on your own. And if you think about athletes, all the people who are in sports, they all have coaches, and this is for a reason, right? So I was growing up playing chess. I have a music degree, and I was doing speed skating. Everywhere I had the best coaches, and that thanks to my parents, of course. But what I've realized, if you do not have someone who is already good at teaching and understanding you as a person, then it's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to succeed because, for example, the Olympic winner who actually did it himself or herself would not know how to actually uncover you because they probably wouldn't know that without certain frameworks. It just doesn't work that way. So it should be someone who is genuinely interested in your personality. And then to me, it's like a maze where I walk through the maze, like every person is a maze. And I see some darkness, I see some light, I see some flowers, I see some demons. And how do we make sure that we see it in front of us and we accept everything who we are and we're not ashamed and we're not hiding anything, we're just in integrity with ourselves. Once you do that, it's way easier to be outside and then talking to people, even though they would be highlighting certain things that you're not comfortable with. As long as you get comfortable with these things, everything is just like great.
Got
And
it.
you are unbeatable, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, so what I heard you say is essentially, why mindset matters is, there might be some hidden blocks in your mindset, and until you start to acknowledge, um, those things that might be hidden and accepting those things, acknowledging those things, seeing those things, and starting to work with those things as they are, then they might be impacting you without your knowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, of course, they can relapse and then they need support. They have to break down and they need support. So every time you are trying like to crawl and then walk, you need support. And then you're running, you need to run faster. Then I have a coach as well, and I'm very grateful for my coach.
So I heard you also say one of the common mindset blocks that you see is that founders don't want to give up control. That and I definitely see that on my side too. Of course, one of the questions that founders always ask me is how can I prevent investors coming in and removing me as CEO, for example. I get that question all the time. And oftentimes also founders, are very reluctant to give up any sort of interest in their companies, for example, or board seats or these sorts of things. So one common mindset block is giving up control. What are some other common mindset blocks?
Um, avoiding, avoiding and like delaying and procrastinating.
Mm,
So, when you know that you need to do certain things, but they are difficult, you kind of try to jump on other tasks. But then there's one thing that's just bothering you, and it's constantly on the back end. And I like how Jeff Bezos talks about it. He says that stress does not come from a lot of work, it comes from the things that you are avoiding and then you do not take action towards to.
mm.
I totally agree with that. Like, for example, one of the clients, he is like successful founder. And then every time he would be feeling guilty about leaving his mom in another state, and then he's now in New York. And I asked him, so what in ideal world you could do to make sure that you don't think about it anymore and then you don't feel guilty anymore? Said that I would want her to live with me. So what you can do about that? Well, I don't know if she would want that. Like I never talked to her about this. And then eventually they spoke and she's like, I can move to New York if you want me to move. So he brought her to New York and he stopped thinking about it. So 50% of his mental space just like cleared out and then he can focus on his business. It's easy, but sometimes we do not understand how certain things actually not working for us. Or some of the founders are stuck in a relationship where they know that this relationship, like romantic relationship, does not work out. And they just, okay, that's fine. I will figure it out later. And the energy is flowing different direction, not in the direction where they can be 100% present to, but they are also unfulfilled, not happy with what's happening with their partners. And one of them even told me that I'm dating her for 3 years and I do not want to marry her and I live with her, but she thinks that everything is going to happen. As a coach, I cannot judge. everything to me is neutral. So my goal is to help my clients to get to the place where they will be 100% productive. But that actually stopped him from executing in some
Mm,
ways because, again, the guilt and resentment. Then they started talking, and she was really upset. He was really upset. It was really emotionally difficult, and he couldn't focus on work during this time. But eventually, they got separated for a while, and I suggested that they hire a therapist, a couple therapist. Like it's a different thing, and they went through this process, and that didn't work out to them. And at least he closed that door. This door
mm,
is not half open. He understands that, okay, I'm good here. I figured it out. Now I'm on my path to build the company. The same with co-founders. If you feel that your co-founder is not like on the same page with you anymore, if you feel that it's not working for both of you, then you have to do something about it. Or you have to hire a coach that can actually clarify all the miscommunication, for example. That's what I'm seeing very often.
got
And
it. Go ahead.
also going back to what you said, like what are the most like common things that founders actually face is that when they have to make a decision, they usually go to someone who they think is cooler and better than them. Like for example, it could be 3 times exited advisor, or it could be a cool founder who already raised $100 million. So they would think, okay, if they did that, they probably can give me good advice. Yes, collecting data is great that you can collect it from everyone, but no one can make decision for you because you deep down already know what's best for you. And then you have to listen to yourself, even though the logical decision that like everyone else will tell you about is present, you still feel that it's not the right way to pursue like the things. You just have to do what you believe in yourself. And I've noticed it so many times with my clients that they would be thinking, oh, these people know better, but you know better than anyone because sometimes people have their own agenda that you don't know about. And then even if you have the partner, spouse, the romantic partner, immediately your decision affects their lives. So even though they wish you the best, still they can think of themselves in different way when you're making this decision. So that's why I'm always repeating, try to understand what's best for you and not make decisions out of like guilt or resentment or fear. Always think from the abundance and always try to put yourself in this mindset where if I did not like fear or if I did not resent or if I did not feel guilty towards anything, what would I do? And then this is like the best answer when it comes to you.
Mhm, 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 mhm. So, um, so what I heard you say is essentially, founders might go collect data from, which I see this all the time too. I was just talking to a founder yesterday, and they get some pretty wacky advice often, like, and that sometimes makes me raise an eyebrow. Like,
That
I was talking to a founder yesterday, and we were talking about an MSA, drafting an MSA for, going and selling to enterprise clients. And, he said that he talked to some founder, and that founder said, "Hey, if you, um, put your services on the invoice rather than in the MSA itself, that will save you significant red lines so that you don't have to go back and forth, with the enterprise customer, as much." And I was like, and he told me that, and I was like, that I don't understand how that's gonna save red lines. I mean, I guess in theory, the idea makes sense because, hey, if it's on the invoice, then maybe, like, by some luck of the draw, they look at the invoice and they don't care about what the terms of the MSA say, I guess. But I mean, if there's a legal department, they're gonna review the terms regardless of where the services are listed, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah, so you don't know. You don't know why someone might be giving you advice. You don't know what that person's experience is. You don't know, and so what I hear your job as the coach is actually, everyone has the answers inside themselves. You haven't like exactly said these words, but this is kind of like what I've heard you allude to. The coach just guides you to the answer that is inside of yourself that that is true, but maybe, for this reason or that reason, for whatever reason, you're not accepting that answer. So your role as the coach is to help people kind of remove whatever is preventing them from getting to the answer within themselves. And so some of the other things that I heard you say that are common mindset challenges for founders is letting go of control, avoidance, procrastination, and also this thing that we've talked about, which is them going to other people and kind of collecting data and so on and so forth. Okay, but I want to go back to um, this concept of you helping founders to scale and to raise funds. And I really want to understand, like I would love for the audience to get something from you, like a practice or a tool or something like that, for them to identify like if it's scaling their revenue. Obviously, like I think all founders always want to be growing, right? They always want more sales. They want to get past that 1 million ARR mark. Once they're past the 1 million ARR mark, then they want to continue growing from there as well so that they can, I feel like so many founders want the $100 million exit, right? Have you ever heard a founder say, you ask them like, oh, like what's your goal? $100 million. I want to sell to Google. That's so many.
Or they say, I'm not going to sell it to Google for $100 million. I will be unicorn. That's it. I'm like,
Yes,
okay.
that's the other one. It's either that or that. There's like no founder is ever like, oh yeah, like I'll get a $5 million exit and that's it. You never hear them say that, despite the fact that a lot of founders actually usually end up exiting in that range. I would say that the $100 million exits and the unicorn exits are more rare. Not impossible, doesn't it's not that it doesn't happen often, just more rare. A lot of the businesses usually end up more in the middle market range. That's just, the nature of how things are. So, based on that, what can you share with the audience to help them hit their goals?
Building relationships is everything. You can have the best tools and then you can have the best AI, but if you do not know how to sell it and who to sell it to, then nothing is going to work. When we go back to selling, I want to discern knowing your pitch from building the trust with your potential customers. So, how do you do that? You want to connect with people on a personal level first before you even like start pitching anything. And then once you are connected, then you can start wondering what these people actually experienced before and in terms of like the domain where the what how they tried to solve this challenge and then if they even believe that it's solvable and if they're looking for this solution when you qualify the person, like will be your prospect, then you understand that, okay, I might be closer here, like, and I can understand like what they're looking for. The same with fundraising. You go to an investor and you never start talking to an investor like about your product. You just like understand them as people first. And very often you go to an investor and they say, I am an industry agnostic investor. No, you're not because you have your passions. You probably believe in something and you probably invest in something that you're passionate about. So let me ask you, what are the interests that intriguing you the most? Or what do you think is going to be like really great later, like 8 years from now or 5 years from now? What you believe in? And they will talk to you, they will share some things, and then you will already see if it's aligning with what you're building or not. And then you can ask all the questions and ask why they're passionate about it. What specifically is of interest to them. Very often I go to the events. I can see how founders are just jumping on you and then, hey, I'm building ABC. We are solving this problem. And they're getting into the roots of like their technical product and then what it does. But you have no connection to this industry. And then I was like, okay, I don't even know like the first step of this. I then you talking to me about the 10th step of this. And I can see it everywhere and it happens very often. So whatever you're doing, like scaling or fundraising, you have to start building trust first. But
Mhm.
this is again going back to the mindset. How can you make sure that people are actually opening up to you? For example, I usually go to conferences on behalf of the startups that I advise. And at the last conference, I met with the like basically head of investments of a huge company that was like corporate arm. And then it was a happy hour side event. And, everyone is drinking and I'm asking my questions. And this person tells me, I shouldn't have said that to you, but one, two, three, four. This is how it works. These are the full competitors. These are like their like pros and cons. I think we will go after this one because ABCD. This company doesn't have certain like qualities, and this founder sucks. And then you know all the data. But if I did not build trust in the first place with this person to share with me all this information, and then nothing I would know that I could pass to the startup and say, hey, actually, you need to like retouch some things here and then build certain things here. This is what they think. But of course, it doesn't mean that if person like said that, it means that you have to like redo everything. No, but you can collect feedback by talking to all these people who are your stakeholders and then making sure that they are truthfully speaking to you and giving you honest feedback. And then you have to be open to feedback.
Mm.
And then you have to have low ego. But having low ego is not easy because all the founders, I am an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur, we like operate by ourselves. We usually don't want people tell us what to do. And then we are like, okay, we can figure it out. But then when you go through certain like personal development course or through coaching, you understand that your ego was hurt like back then. And then you just need to recover. And it's not about the ego, it's about how both independent parties can win from doing the deal. And then how they can trust each other and how they can become interdependent versus codependent.
Mm. So is this aspect of what you just talked about, you essentially walked through how founders typically have what I call the curse of the expert. The curse of the expert is they just assume that everyone understands their industry, understands the product, understands, whatever it is that they're working on at the level that they do. And so they start explaining it to you from level 10 as opposed to level 1, which is where they need to start, so that they can actually make contact and connection with whoever it is that they're speaking to, so that they can begin to build trust and so on and so forth. Or maybe it actually is that they don't even need to talk about the product. It's like, hey, just get to know this person on a human level. So you walked us through this thing that you often see with a lot of founders, with the point that the key to scaling or raising funds is just about building trust, building relationships, building connection, and starting from that place in order to be able to scale your company. So you need to build trust with your customers, or if you're fundraising, you need to build trust and connection to your investors. So, what does your process of working with founders look like? I understand that, the what you wanted founders to get from what you just shared is focus on these things: trust, connection, relationship. So, if they were to come to you, how do you help the founder in that respect?
First, I want to understand what their goals are and what they did before that didn't work for them. And I ask all the questions and build my framework specifically for each founder. not only founders I work with right now, the a couple of investors that I onboarded, but like investors are founders, founders are investors. So it's just entrepreneurial spirit. It's all over. And then everyone is risking either their time or money. So basically, I try to understand like what is something that they want to get and they still did not get it, and then why they think so. And that might be true or false. But then through certain frameworks, you get to the point where they actually share certain beliefs, and then you keep asking. And sometimes it's not obvious for them what they share while they talking. So it's basically first for me to analyze the situation, where they are and where they want to be. And then the next step is creating the roadmap with all the best actions. They usually know about these actions themselves, but they sometimes, I don't know, it's better to do this way or that way, hire this person or that person. And then again, through questions, they can answer themselves, but it has to be the outside. So, and the third step is collecting data from the execution points and then understanding what's next for them. So, the three parts are important, and I usually Mhm.
So the three parts again are
analysis, building the roadmap, execution on all the data that you collected while you were going through this road.
cool. Um, okay. Can we take the example that you gave where the founder who didn't want to give up control? And
Exact.
can
All
we can we dissect that example?
right. So, if you do not want to give up control, where does it come from? Um, for the most part, it's your childhood. Uh, when your parents, either mother or your father, did not let you do something that you wanted to do. And or maybe someone else, your family members or some of your friends, or maybe you were growing up at the school that was like full of bullies, and then every time you need to get everything under control, otherwise you are not safe. It's one of the limiting beliefs that I know of, but there are multiple of them. It's just like for every person, it's different. And then, for example, the belief is if I don't control the situation, that I'm not safe. How can you transform that belief into something that you actually want to see? If I give up control, I am safe, for example. So when you write this down, and then it's just like the very high level of the process, right? So there are exercises that you need to do, and then we go through each one together. And you actually need to create the scenario in your real life today that would be the opposite of your limiting belief. And then once you do that, for example, I'm the person who does not want to give up control, but you understand that you want to do that. So today I will do certain actions. I will take actions towards giving up control. You can start with like small things, right? You like whatever it is for you when you walk out of home. It might be just okay, maybe my friend today can decide what I want to eat. Like just like as it might be, and then you have to train this muscle. And of course, it shouldn't be going to the other side, the opposite side of it. It everything has to be balanced. And then, of course, control issues come usually from trust issues, where you did not trust someone, and then what happened, and then you go back there and then discover it. Some people got betrayed, and they don't want to trust anyone ever again. But then the belief is that if I trust someone, then I am unsafe. How would you want to change that? And it's connected to every area of your life. Like the founder who said that I actually want to have a family, but I am afraid of like giving up control. I cannot delegate to anyone anything I'm doing. Yes, I have a team of five, but still I'm like micromanaging, and I understand that. And if I'm in a relationship, then the relationship will take over me and I will not be progressing. You see how many beliefs already there in the situation. So just shooting one blockage that is about control, you can actually release all the energy that will help you grow in all the aspects of your life.
Mm. You talked about doing some exercises. What's an example of an exercise that founders can do that would maybe help them in some way?
Right. So, the first and foremost, you have to understand who you are. And sometimes we see ourselves differently from how other people see us. The exercise that I like doing myself is asking for feedback. It's usually three weaknesses and three strengths that you can say about. Um, and I'm asking my family members, I'm asking my friends, I'm asking the people who I work with. And sometimes the opinions are polar, absolutely polar, but to me, it's still information, how I act with them. And then they also have their different like baselines for sure. But this brings me awareness how I show up to others. Once you have this awareness, then you know what you need to figure out. And then you need also to ask your parents, basically your closest circle, and then the people who somehow are involved in your work life. So, for example, if you, and there is a game, actually, there is a hint. If you can tell like three things about me, and I'll tell you later what's going to happen, I can tell you about you.
Okay.
Okay, three things. Like, for example, three weaknesses, three strengths.
You want me to tell you 3 weaknesses and 3 strengths about you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. I love it. I'll start with strengths first. Okay, 3 strengths. I think your one strength of yours in terms of my experience of you is you're very confident. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think another strength of yours in terms of my experience of you is, um, you have great insight and intuition.
Thank you.
I think another strength of yours, you seem very organized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh, what I see as your strengths, it's you really know where you're going, even though to you it might seem differently, but it feels that at least you have your like milestones that you want to hit. And this is great. Not that many people have it. You have your dedication and discipline that whatever needs to be done will be done. And you are like, at least you seem accountable. And every time I like communicate with you, you do what you say and you say what you do. It's also super rare. And I so respect people who are that way because, you know, in our world, it's like really not easy to keep up with with what you say you do and you do with what you say because so many things are coming to you at the same time. So basically, these are the three things that I see in you. The game is like that whatever you see in others is actually the reflection of you.
Mm,
Whatever prior knowledge you have, you can map it to what you hear now. If you, for example, read in Russian, you don't read in Russian. That's why you don't understand like Russian book, but you understand the book in English. And that's why you already have the prior knowledge about English, and then you can actually scan it and connect to certain things that you already know. The same with me. Everything you said about me is actually you, and everything I said about you is actually me. This is a great way to learn about people when you ask them, well, how did you like the city? What did you like about the people? And whatever they say, it will be just a reflection of them. And I hear it very often, Aryuna is bullshit. Like, it cannot be that I am so like stressed about the things when like people are not organized or they don't do what they say, like for example. And then the following question is like, why are you triggered by that? Do you think that you're not accepting that part of you that is that way? Exactly. Um, and they're like, no, 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 I'm the opposite. But you cannot be the opposite of like 100% cases. We all humans, we all make these mistakes. We all sometimes do that. So it's all about basically accepting your dark sides and your like bright sides in one And the exercise that actually helps is collecting feedback from the people. And then it also can improve your relationship with these people. And to answer your question, this is a changer exercise.
Yeah. Yes. When you said, 3 pieces of feedback, my heart was like, "Oh my god." I can only imagine how scary it must be, for founders because um, it can really impact relationships. Imagine if I chose 3 weaknesses first, and then we had to, talk about
That's
the
what I
3.
usually pick. Yes.
Yeah, it's so
Okay. Go with
scary.
the weaknesses. And the people who cannot tell you about weaknesses, they are usually avoiding it, and you can see how they're avoiding everything that in their lives.
Mhm.
So to me, it's a good sign if people can share some negative thoughts with you about you. It's a good sign to me. They have this stamina.
Do you find that founders ask their team for feedback in this way usually?
No, that's why I try to help them do it.
Mhm, mhm. And to go back to the scaling and fundraising, would this exercise help in those places?
Absolutely, because every time you're with a customer, when you ask about concerns, they're like, "Yes, I will think about it. The solution is great. Bye." You never let your prospect go without scheduling another date or scheduling another follow-up date or next like action. Sometimes they would be like, "Okay, we need to talk to like bunch of teams before we approve this process. Like we will get back to you." No, you will. So basically, genuinely, what are your concerns? So just for our data on our end, what do you think might not work for you in this situation? And then they start talking. But you have to be also authentic with them without saying that, yes, of course, everything is perfect. This is the product. This is how we serve other people. This is the feedback. But of course, you always have the concerns and you have to work with all the concerns that they have. And then not even in a convincing way, but in an inspiring way that you want to help them. You don't want to take their money, you want to bring them value. Once you shift your mindset toward this goal, everything changes.
Mm. And what would you say to a founder who says something like, okay, well, I always ask investors for feedback, for example. And, I think for example, so many founders complain that investors do this, where they're like, I ask for feedback and they tell me that, my ARR isn't there yet and that I need to be at 1 million ARR. But then when I get to 1 million ARR, they actually say that I actually need to be at 1.5 million ARR. What would you say to that founder?
I honestly think that it depends on the investor because not every investor can share like why they are not investing because it might cause more problems. So it's easier to say whatever they don't have, just like for a reason to say no. But there are investors who actually will tell you the truth. And like for example, I had a call with the lead investor of SpaceX when I was a co-founder, and I I just like knew how to reach out to people in a way that they would respond. And then all the top funds eventually responded to. It's just like knowing how to craft it, basically. So he told me, "Listen, um, everything sounds great, but I do not believe that it's my level of investment that I'm ready to, or I'm happy to refer to someone." And then I asked why, and he said certain things that I didn't expect to hear. It was hurting. It was not pleasant. I mean, professionally, everything was great. I'm very polite, but still, I felt that it's just like nothing is going to work out.
Mm,
But it's his perspective. And then it helped us actually to add some features that we didn't have. And it was, it was a good call. So sometimes you need to hear like harsh feedback in order to start executing faster. And that's why I'm trying to collect feedback as much as possible from my friends, from my family, from the people I work with. So I know that everyone is on the same page so we can find the consensus.
Got it. And so the thought process there is, there might ag the same way with mindset, and excavating for the blockages that we're not aware of, an easy exercise that founders can undertake to have greater awareness about what might be standing in their way is simply to just
Absolutely.
ask for feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think are my areas of improvement if they don't want to word weaknesses as it's like kind of harsh and my strengths?
Mm,
So that's as easy as it can be.
wow, very cool. Is there anything else that you think that founders should know about scaling or fundraising?
Well, if they have any questions, they can always reach out to me. So, and I would love to work with them.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us this week,
Thank
Aryuna.
you.
It's been
Thank
a
you.
real pleasure having you on the show and speaking with you. I've very much enjoyed this conversation. And for all the listeners out there, if you're still here with us, would love for you to follow, subscribe, like, comment. Make sure to reach out to Aryuna. All her contact information will be in the show notes below. And thanks for joining us for another week of SaaS Buyers Club.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Take
Bye.
care.
Take care.